army. Yeah, you may well boo. A so-called human rights lawyer who supported the blockade of food, of medicine, of water to innocent women and children. Hang your head in shame, Starmer. You know, someone once said, the triumph, good men and women must stand silent and be under no illusion. What's going on in Gaza today is unadulterated evil, and we will not stand silent. We will use our voices. Millions and millions across the world are marching today for decency and for fairness, demanding that the Palestinian people are treated as human beings, because the truth is, Israel is trying to paddle a line that they are not human beings, and therefore what they are doing doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. And I say that we will go on fighting for the justice. We demand not just a ceasefire, but the dismantling of the illegal settlements, so that we have a viable Palestinian state. And I say this to our government: if you believe in a two-state solution, then instead of giving lip service to it, recognise the Palestinian state now. Guys, let me finish on this. When working people, history has taught us, when people join hands across nations and across oceans, anything is possible. Anything is possible. Keep fighting and justice will prevail.
Free! Free, free! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! And in our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! Our next speaker is the General Secretary of the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, one of the co-organisers of today's rally. Please make some noise for Kate Hudson.
Thank you very much. 30,000 people have been killed in Gaza by Israeli forces. Ongoing airstrikes are targeting Rafah. Israel is on the brink of an all-out assault, and thousands more will die in this genocidal onslaught. And our government is complicit in this killing. As long as our government fails to demand an immediate ceasefire, as long as it continues to arm Israel, as long as it trains IDF personnel in Britain, as long as it allows Israel and the US to use air bases in England to move weapons to Israel, then our government is complicit in this genocide. Friends, so too are all politicians that refuse to call for a ceasefire and condone the killing. Those who are guilty of war crimes must be prosecuted as war criminals. This is what we demand. But not only for those responsible within the Israeli state and its military, we also demand that British politicians who have supported these crimes, who have provided the weapons, the political and diplomatic support, they must also be brought to justice. These crimes cannot go unpunished. This genocide cannot go unpunished. On Wednesday in Parliament, there will be another vote, again calling for a ceasefire. This will be yet another test of where these politicians stand. So friends, mark carefully all those who refuse to vote for a ceasefire, all those who vote for continued slaughter, and all those who abstain, even in the face of such horrific slaughter. And remember, friends, when we go to the ballot box, we will never again vote for a politician who has not called for a ceasefire. Friends, this is our commitment to the people of Gaza. No ceasefire, no vote. No ceasefire! No ceasefire! Free, free! Free, free! Now our next speaker is here. She's a TD for Galway West, representing Sinn Féin, who have always stood shoulder to shoulder with the Palestinians in fighting the forces of occupation. Please make some noise for Mairead Farrell.
Friends, I am here from Ireland to say that the Irish people proudly stand with the people of Palestine. And it is powerful to see you here in London today, coming out in your hundreds of thousands to shout, "Stop the genocide, ceasefire now." We are here united. We are united in our solidarity with the Palestinian people. We are united in our devastation for the thousands and thousands and thousands of people murdered, maimed and displaced. And we are united in our horror at seeing what is unfolding in Rafah right at this moment as we stand here today. And we are here to tell apartheid Israel that we see you. We see the genocide that you are perpetrating, and we will not be silent. The international community must step up to the mark. Gaza cannot and will not become the graveyard of international law. And international law, my friends, can only be applied equally. It cannot be a situation where the powers that be implement international law when it is perpetrated by their enemies, but not when it is perpetrated by their allies. And friends, we are witnessing for the first time in the history of our world the first ever televised genocide. We are witnessing a televised genocide unfolding in front of our eyes. And if we fail to stop this, if the international community fail to stop this, then what can we say about humanity? Then there is no such thing as humanity. And also, friends, we know that this will only be the beginning for those powers. Since October, we have seen a spiraling of horror. Remember when they tried to tell us that Israel didn't bomb a hospital, when they tried to tell us that that was fake news, that how could we say that Israel bombed a hospital? But now we see that Israel has bombed every hospital and put every single hospital in Gaza out of use. Yet there is silence. So let us be clear with the international powers that be, that their failure to stop this genocide means that they're losing all moral authority, that history will judge them accordingly, and that their failure to act is not done in our name, and it is not done in the names of the millions of people that stand with Gaza, that stand with Palestine today. They have stood idly by to raise an entire people on the face of the earth. And we need our governments to be leaders, to follow in South Africa's footsteps and hold Israel to account. Our message is loud and clear. Ceasefire now.
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Our next speaker is the MP for Hayes and Harlington, who has always been a strong voice for the Palestinian people in Parliament. Please make some noise for John McDonnell!
I don't want to make a speech. I want to make a simple statement. On Wednesday, as has been said, it's almost certain now there will be a vote on Gaza in Parliament. I want to make this absolutely clear. I will be voting for a ceasefire, immediate ceasefire now. And I'll do so because I want to vote with my conscience. And in my mind, I'll have the images that we've all seen pouring out of Gaza. I will have the image of those small children dead, wrapped in their shrouds. I will have the image of Wael al-Daboub, the Al Jazeera journalist who bravely throughout this has reported courageously, but has lost his son, his wife, and many of his children. I'll have in my mind the image of the bombing of the hospitals. I'll have in my mind teenagers who held up a white flag but were shot dead by the Israeli Defense Force. All of that militates towards me voting for an immediate ceasefire. But I say this to my colleagues in Parliament. Vote with your conscience. Vote for peace. Vote for a ceasefire. Because this is the only way that they'll secure the release of the hostages, the end of the killings, and the justice for Palestinians. Because yes, because that's one way in this vote we can say very clearly, in our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians. Solidarity.
In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! Now our next speaker is one of the organisers of today's rally. He's here representing Friends of Al-Aqsa. Please make some noise for Ismail Patel!
Assalamu alaikum. Friends, the past 4 months has witnessed the best and the worst of humanity. On the one side, we have Israel not carrying out a war, but the total annihilation of Palestinians in Gaza. Israeli inhumanity is reflected in the fate of the 6-year-old Hind Rajab. Hind, on 29th of January, was traveling with her uncle and her family when their car was hit by an Israeli bomb. Trapped in the vehicle and surrounded by her dead relatives, for 3 hours she pleaded with the Red Crescents to save her. For 12 days, nobody knew what had happened to Hind. After 12 days, Hind, the 2 paramedics who went to help, and her relatives were discovered murdered with their bodies decomposing. The last words of Hind: I am so scared. The killing of the 6-year-old Hind should have shamed us all. But instead, the British government and the opposition leader Keir Starmer wants us to believe killing a 6-year-old Israeli, killing a 6-year-old Hind is Israel's right of self-defense. We can never be justification for the killing of Hind. We say no colonizing, racist, occupying power has a right of self-defense. We charge Israel and the British government with the murder of Hind and the genocide in Gaza. How many more children have to die before it is going to be enough for you? If Israel and its partners have shown us the worst of humanity, we and the millions around the world have provided hope. A hope not based on fantasy, but hope, because the millions, through bravery, are challenging the warmongers. Our hope is based on knowing we will need to go out and demand justice and peace. And it is our effort that gives hope and have led to Japan and its ends partnership with the Israeli manufacturer Elbit. It is our hope that has led to Italy suspend all shipments of military material to Israel. And it is our hope and efforts that has led to Spain stopping selling arms to Israel. And it is our efforts and hope that has wiped out 1.5 billion pounds of shares from McDonald's. We, the government, also stop all military exports to Israel. We demand the British government not only call for an immediate ceasefire, but an end to Israel's racist policy and occupation. We demand the British government call for democracy, equality, and freedom for all between the river and the sea. We inform the British government we will not cower to your threats, and we will continue with our demands, because we know all too well fear never builds the future, but one that hopes has within them the power to make a world a better place. Rishi and Starmer, take note. You are not fit to be making laws when you violate international laws. You have Palestinian. We and history will never forgive you for turning Gaza into a killing field. Free, 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 free. Friends, continue with our efforts, and our hope will eventually get Palestinians free. Thank you very much.
Free, free! Free, free! Free! Now, it is my huge pleasure to be able to announce our current numbers estimate for the number of people who are marching with us today. And I am so pleased to be able to say that our numbers are not diminishing, they're only getting bigger. There are 250,000 of us on this demonstration today. The politicians in Westminster, they might think that we'll get bored, that we'll get cold, that we'll stop coming, but we will never give up. We will never give in. We will never stop doing everything and anything that we can until Palestine is free. Now, our next speaker almost needs no introduction. He's a man who fights against injustice. He fights for liberation wherever and whenever he can. He's the People's Prime Minister. Please give it up for Mr. Jeremy Corbyn!
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. 250,000 of us here today in solidarity with the people of Palestine. Demonstrations going on today in 120 cities around the world, in 45 different countries around the world. Millions of people on the streets, on the march, demonstrating their solidarity with the people of Palestine under siege right now. We've got to carry on. This is the 14th national demonstration, and there's going to be as many more as it takes until there is a ceasefire, until there is justice for the Palestinian people. It's also a day to remember these are the truth tellers, those journalists, the reality of the bombardment of Gaza, those people that tell us the reality of the global arms trade and what its consequences are. And so, on Tuesday of this week, something very important is happening. Julian Assange's case goes back to the High Court. Please support Julian Assange for telling the truth
telling the truth about war, telling operations and about the reality of what wars do. As I am speaking, as I am here now, there are 1 million people in Rafah under siege, without enough water, without enough food, without enough medicines, without proper sanitation. The population of Rafah has gone up 7-fold in the last 2 months. They cannot cope with the demands of the people there. They're massed around the border, desperate to try and get somewhere to be safe. And they were told that going to Rafah would be safe. And Israel is now preparing to bombard Rafah, an already chronically overcrowded, chronically undersupplied city. The carnage that has already happened, with 30,000 dead, almost half of those are children, will get so much worse as soon as that bombardment starts. And so I ask 2 questions. This bombardment has gone on now since October. Already the people of Gaza were under siege. The consequences are horrific. The generation of orphans growing up in Gaza, having seen their families killed and destroyed by American-supplied weapons flying over them. The mental health stress, even if there was a ceasefire tomorrow, will last for decades and decades for those poor people that have already suffered years of siege, and in the case of the West Bank, of occupation. We're witnessing something globally horrific in real time on our televisions. In real time on our televisions, the carnage goes on. And so on Wednesday, when the UK Parliament has a motion before it, tabled by the Scottish National Party, I am signing in support of that motion. And I want every one of you here, demand of your MP, your elected representative, be there, vote for a ceasefire. No buts, no qualifications, just call for complete ceasefire and respect for the International Court of Justice decision. The International Court of Justice has made its views clear. The UN has made its votes clear. And in the words of Antonio Guterres, this issue didn't come from nowhere. Awful as the events of October the 7th were, it didn't start then. It started with the Nakba in 1948. It went on with the occupation. It's been on with endless wars ever since. What we're now seeing is a second Nakba, where if Israel gets its way, more than 1 million Palestinians will be forced out of Gaza into the Sinai to set up a new Gaza Strip, as once more the horror story of the lives of Palestinians goes on. Well, the message here from London today is we're having none of that. We're not going to allow our government to support that. We are here with the Palestinian people for peace, for freedom, for justice, and we ain't ever going away. Thank you.
Now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Let's keep getting louder! Ceasefire now! And our next speaker is Chair of the International Committee for the National Education Union, representing 500,000 education workers across the country. Please, may Make some noise for Louise Reagan.
As we stand here today, the people of Gaza have nowhere left to go. In Rafah, 1.4 million people are crammed into refugee camps in an area the size of Heathrow Airport. Families that have been displaced multiple times are left with the inconceivable choice of one death sentence over another. The UN's relief chief has warned that military operations in Rafah could lead to a slaughter in Gaza and leave an already fragile humanitarian operation at death's door. The International Court of Justice could not have been clearer. Israel must prevent genocide against Palestinians in Gaza and enable the provision of basic services and humanitarian assistance. Yet, as the bombs and missiles rain down in Rafah, it is hard to imagine a more flagrant abuse of that order. Rather than suspending arms sales to Israel, the UK government has halted funding for UNRWA, the only lifeline available for 2 million Gazans. Instead of de-escalating the conflict, they escalate it through airstrikes on Yemen, and they continue to abstain on UN votes for a ceasefire. That's why UK charities like Christian Aid and Oxfam have warned the UK government that unless it changes course, it is complicit in the slaughter of civilians in Gaza. So on behalf of the National Education Union, once again, I urge our government to demand that Israel implements an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. Do everything possible to ensure the immediate release and return of hostages. Ensure accountability for all violations of international humanitarian law. Stop arming Israel. Restore funding to UNRWA. Stop the bombing of Yemen. 11 children like relative of Ambassador Hussam Zomla, who was killed in Rafah. Whilst the world watched the Super Bowl and President Biden ask our leaders, how many more photos of mutilated young children do you need to see before you act? Last week, the chair of the UN Child's Rights Committee said, "Today, no child in Gaza is free from fear, pain and hunger. In fact, they will be considered lucky if they can even survive this war and have the chance to grow up." For those who have survived, many have lost their limbs, their parents, their siblings, their friends. They've been without education since October, and many students and educators won't have classrooms to return to. In the West Bank, 97 children have been killed since October the 7th, as attacks on Palestinians and the demolition of essential infrastructure like schools has increased. This catastrophic violence must end. The siege of Gaza and the occupation of the West Bank must end. As a signatory to the United Nations Convention on Genocide, the UK has clear responsibility to take all steps possible to avert further genocidal acts by Israel. We must not be complicit. We demand respect for international humanitarian law. We demand a ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Thank you.
Free, free! Free, free! From the river to the sea! Now our next speaker is here representing the Palestinian Forum in Britain. They're one of the co-organisers of today's rally. Please give us a very warm welcome for Farah Saber.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank everyone on behalf of the Palestinian Forum in Britain for accepting the call for global action and to keep marching for Palestinian freedom. Today, February 17th, 2024, marks the 134th day of the genocide. This is the 4th month of non-stop aggression and violence on innocent civilians.
45 countries and 121 cities around the world have come out to demand an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and to end the occupation in Palestine. The power of the people here and across the world is indescribable. The resilience of the Palestinians. Israel have attacked the last so-called safe zone in Gaza. They have indiscriminately bombed Rafah, the only area that they had demanded all Gazans flee to. The Palestinians in Gaza are at an immediate risk of being completely ethnically cleansed. 1.5 million innocent civilians are sheltering within a 55-kilometer radius. We need to continue to make our calls stronger, keep pushing for divestment, and ask governments to push for sanctions. The has had financial ramifications on the occupation. We'll continue these efforts to make Israel a pariah state, isolated by all nations and people. We must continue demanding that governments aid and facilitate the airdropping of food and medical aid into Gaza. Keep mobilizing and keep your actions towards Palestine fueled with love, anger and emotion. Your actions will hold the people in power accountable. Our message here, loud and clear, in our hundreds of thousands is this: no to oppression, no to injustice, no to violence. Peace and liberation are the only paths forward. We will keep mobilizing. We will keep fighting for what's right, for humanity and for Palestine. In our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians for Palestine!
In our thousands, in our millions! 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 Our next speaker is the chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, Europe's largest Palestine solidarity group and the co-organisers of today's rally. Please make some noise for Kamal Hawash.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I really need to start with big thanks to you for coming out again. This is the 9th demonstration, and nobody would have thought that for the 9th demonstration 250,000 people would come to support the Palestinians. I've been in touch with those friends who I can talk to in Gaza, and I don't have to tell you how awful the situation is. There is fear, there is terror, there is hunger, there is thirst, there's no electricity. Real daily life that we are used to here, it just does not exist. It's a matter of survival. It is just a matter of survival. People look at their family, their children, and wonder whether in the morning they will wake up together or whether a bomb will drop on them and they'll have to bury those who died and take those who are left to whatever remains of the medical service. It has almost come to an end. And in areas in the north of Gaza in particular, journalists are hardly available to tell us what is happening. And under that cover, Israel is unfortunately using it to oppress, to kill, to demolish. You will have seen TikTok videos by Israeli terrorist soldiers celebrating the demolition of a house for no reason. Shame on them, of course. And let me be clear, if any of them are British citizens and have come back here, they should be arrested and interrogated for the potential that they joined in war crimes against Palestinians, against Palestinian children. They may think they're serving their nation, but surely this is their nation if they hold a British passport. It is not Israel. And as for the international community, what a shameful position we are in, that Israel has normalized the killing of children. It has made it normal. Every morning, 200 have died, 100 have died. So what? They're only Palestinians. They're human animals. I look forward to the day when those who talked with these phrases stand at the ICC and spend the rest of their lives in prison. We will probably have the biggest demonstration when we hear that Netanyahu has been arrested. And I hope he gets the justice he deserves. I finish by saying that it's always an honor to be with you as the chair of the PSC, but that I am more honored to be from Jerusalem, the capital of Palestine. So friends, please keep the Palestinians in your minds, in your prayers. Please do what you can to charities that will be there to try and help the Palestinians recover. Write to your MPs telling them what an awful decision this government has taken by stopping funding UNRWA. It is the main organization that delivers the aid, and they should reinstate it. Israel has lied again. They should put the word lying Israel before its name, because that's what it does. But thank you very much for coming out. Come out again. I will be in Birmingham when we have a protest in Birmingham in a couple of weeks. Go to your local ones, go to the ones in London. Continue to support the Palestinians until we are free. Thank you.
Free, free! Free, free! Now our next speaker is here representing the Muslim Association of Britain. They're another of the co-organisers of today's march. Please give a very warm welcome to Mustafa Al-Dabar.
Thank you. Brothers, sisters, friends, Assalamu alaikum. It has been over 130 days since Israel started its murderous rampage in Gaza, resulting in 30,000 civilians being murdered and 100,000 injured. We are witnessing the images of children's bodies torn to shreds, of homes being destroyed, of innocents being murdered as we speak. Every day that goes by, more Palestinians are killed. More homes, hospitals, and schools are destroyed. This genocide is being broadcast all over the world. And whilst some in Israel are proudly boasting about their war crimes, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer want to convince us that it is business as usual. They want to convince us that it is Israel's right to murder civilians and commit war crimes. Day in and day out, those sitting comfortably in the seats of power must be reminded that they are complicit in this genocide. And so long as this genocide continues, we will not stop protesting. We will never let them forget that rather than using our taxes to fund the NHS, or to properly fund our schools, or to help the most vulnerable, they chose to fund the massacre of 30,000 Palestinians and the displacement of over 1.7 million. Friends, never has calling for a ceasefire, never has calling for peace been controversial. Never have we had to spell out that the bombing of hospitals or the murder of children is wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, the propaganda machine is crumbling. The tide is turning. This is now not about Israel's right to defend itself. It has now become about Israel's right to commit genocide. So they will resort to intimidating us to policing our language, to policing our actions. But we won't let them. We will continue standing against genocide. We will continue standing against oppression, occupation, and ethnic cleansing. We will grow stronger, and we will not stop at just a ceasefire. We must demand accountability. We must demand justice. We must demand freedom. And we must demand that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you.
Free, free! Free, free! Now, we've got a message for the people in Parliament. And that is, no ceasefire, no vote. No ceasefire! No ceasefire! No ceasefire! No ceasefire! No ceasefire! No ceasefire! Our next speaker is a human rights activist and leading young Palestinian voice in Britain. She's also the independent prospective parliamentary candidate for the people of Ilford North. Please make some noise for Liam Mohammed.
Thank you. On this global day of action, as Israel stands on the brink of a full ground invasion into Rafah, there has never been a more critical time to raise your voice and act for Gaza. This is a genocide that will haunt us for the rest of our lives. So at the upcoming general election, it is imperative that we hold all those accountable that have allowed this to continue. No ceasefire, no vote. No ceasefire, no ceasefire. We must ensure that all those complicit in the suffering of the Palestinians are held responsible at the ballot box. Now you all have the opportunity to punish both of these parties, Labour and the Conservatives, who've brought hell on the people of God, given Israel diplomatic cover and have not questioned the supply of weaponry. They've spent months saying Israel has a right to self-defense, yet today they use clever words to show mild criticism of Israel. They talk of a sustained ceasefire, an Orwellian term to mean a ceasefire once Israel has completed its ethnic cleansing. In Ilford North, our message is no ceasefire, no vote. Let this be the rallying cry everywhere, a universal call for accountability and a steadfast commitment to justice. No ceasefire, no ceasefire, no ceasefire. Next week, the SNP will present another crucial ceasefire motion in Parliament, giving MPs the opportunity to make a resolute stand against genocide or find themselves on the wrong side of history. The choice is clear and it will be remembered. And never forget those who had the opportunity to endorse a ceasefire last year, but chose not to, even if they reconsider their stance in the upcoming week. We should never have to explain why the remains of a child hanging from a building wall with her legs blown off is wrong. We should never have to plead for a genocide, for a ceasefire 134 days into a genocide. Yet, in the face of such atrocities, we have the collective power to honour the memory of these 28,000 Palestinians killed, and we can do this in the upcoming general election. The Labour Party is sadly the greatest culprit here. They could have stopped this. They could have acted as an opposition. Instead, they chose to collude with Sunak and Biden. You cannot allow these people your vote. You must vote for independent or pro-Palestine candidates. Search them out. If you can't organise and unite for your brothers and sisters in Gaza. The next election is about Gaza, because Gaza signifies humanity. It signifies morality. It's come to symbolise all that is horrid and distorted in this world, to an unjust order that should no longer prevail. Do not let them get away with it. If you live in Ilford North, Bethnal Green and Stepney, Dewsbury, Birmingham, Ladypool, Slough, Leicester South, Wickham. If you live in any of these seats and more, vote them down. We have to make a change. Remember that Palestine is a cause and not a trend. And solidarity is a verb. Keep channeling your rage into action and bring your rage to the ballot box. Never forget, we are part of a global justice movement for Palestine in every corner of the world, uniting to show our leaders that we will never accept genocide in our name. We will keep building this movement. We will keep up this pressure to show our elected politicians that people in this country and around the world support a full, immediate and permanent ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. So when it comes to casting your vote, stand firm and do not forget, it is no ceasefire, no vote. No ceasefire! No ceasefire! Thank you.
No ceasefire! No ceasefire! Now our next speaker is the editor of Tribune magazine. He's here speaking on behalf of the Just Reporting Network, who are a group of media workers who are pushing their industry to report fairly and accurately on the assault on Gaza. Please give a very warm welcome to Taj Ali.
I'm here today to speak on behalf of the Just Reporting Network. We are a new collective of journalists, writers, media workers, filmmakers who are horrified by the massacre of our colleagues in Gaza. The massacre of our colleagues in Gaza is unlike anything we have ever seen in living history. And we need to speak up and challenge this injustice. Of international law, it is a violation of the Geneva Convention, and it is something that everyone in the industry has to explicitly call out and condemn. We see our colleagues every single day risking their lives to report the horrors being inflicted on their own family members. We see journalists like Wael al-Dahdu, who had to report on the killing of his own wife, who had to report on the killing of his own daughter, who had to report on the killing of his own cameraman, who was left to bleed in a school because the Israelis never stopped firing. We in positions of power and influence have a duty to report the truth on what's happening in Palestine. And the very least we can do in our comfortable newsrooms here in the UK is to speak truth to power, to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. When we talk about the Palestinian people, we use the passive tongue. We say that the Palestinian people are found dead. They were not found dead, they were killed. And we must name the killer the same way we name the killer when we talk about murder in this country. We are talking about mass murder. It is an absolute disgrace that we have erased 74 years of the oppression of the Palestinian people, because we as journalists know that the oppression of the Palestinian people did not begin in October. We know that the Palestinian people are not just being brutalized in Gaza, where there's been a 16-year siege. We know in the West Bank they are being humiliated at checkpoints. There's illegal settlements. There is violence, daily violence. We know in Israel there are over 65 discriminatory laws against the Palestinian people. Now, how can we stay neutral on racism? How can we stay neutral on apartheid? How can we stay neutral on genocide? This is not me saying it. This is what the International Court of Justice is saying. This is what the international humanitarian agencies are saying. These are what the NGOs are saying. And so all of us have a responsibility to report the truth on what's happening. The Palestinian people are seeing their media studios destroyed. They are fighting every single day to report on what's happening to their people. And I call on all journalists in this country to join the side of justice, join the side of accountability, join the side that wants to expose one of the greatest injustices of our time. We have so much privilege in this country, and we need to use that privilege. I want to leave you with the words of Mawtaz Azazi, the Palestinian photojournalist who never took a break and reported every single day for months for the Palestinian people. He said, as humans, we all have a responsibility to bear witness to what is happening in Gaza. I tried my best to show the world our reality. Now the world needs to show where it stands. It is ordinary people, men and women, who have the power to save what remains of Palestine. Our plea is a simple one. We just want to live.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is a British journalist and filmmaker who recently made headlines after she powerfully exposed Western hypocrisy and complicity during a viral Sky News interview. She's also joined on stage by Health Workers for Palestine. Please make some noise for Mariam Swaz.
My name is Dr. Miriam Francois, and I'm here today with Health Workers for Palestine. I'm not a medical doctor, but I stand with health workers because whether here or in Gaza, they are the front line. This week saw yet another hospital, Nasser Hospital, where our colleagues Dr. Khalid Aslar and Dr. Ahmed Maghrabi are among the abducted and missing. Over 659 health workers have been killed so far, and 110 are missing. We must demand accountability. Say it with me. Where is Dr. Aslar? Where is Dr. Maghrabi? In this, I want to talk about hope. The late great Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish wrote, "Without hope, we are lost." 134 days into the horrors unfolding, it can feel hard to maintain that hope. Overwhelmed by the power and adaptability of oppressive systems, it can sometimes feel hard to hold on, but hold on we must. Angela Davis reminds us that no movement is possible without hope. Hope is resistance, and shared hope forms the very foundations of solidarity, power, and the potential for change. This is no time to slow down, people. At this moment, you are the hope and prayers of families stuck in tents with no food, water, or medicine. You are the hope of detained medics and injured journalists. You are the hope many are holding on to. So what can we do? Any successful movement must recognize the pillars of power in its society. And here in the temples of capitalism, money is God. Each and every one of you has spending power, which makes the wheels of this economy turn, currently in service to a small elite who are ignoring the voice of the people. So how do we make them listen? How we spend is how they listen. Say it with me. How we spend is how they listen. Again, how we spend is how they listen. Our consumption is a reflection of who we are. From today, I call on each and every one of you to begin a global boycott movement. Boycotting is consumer activism. It means each and every one of us is going to swerve every major corporation that has not yet divested from complicity with ethnic cleansing, apartheid, and mass murder. Because the truth is, divesting from plausible genocide is really the bare minimum. From Palestine to Congo, we say no divestment, no spend. And again, no spend. When we shop from now on, we shop local, we shop independent, and we shop ethical. How do we shop? Local, independent, ethical. It's time to let the corporates know that we mean business. No divestment, no spend, no divestment. Consumer activism like this has worked before and it can work again. It has influenced corporate advocacy on climate change, racial justice and marriage equity. And from now on, Palestinian freedom is going to be core to our consumer ethics. Until when Nike joins with Mu'taz or Bizan, until that moment, then we can renegotiate. Until then, remember that while we may think we are freeing Palestine, it is always Palestine freeing us. When we free Palestine, we free ourselves. Our struggles are one, power to the people. Boycott, boycott, boycott. Free, free Palestine.
Free, free! Free, free! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! Free, free! Now our next speaker is here representing the Jewish bloc that has been showing absolutely incredible solidarity with every single demonstration. Please make some noise for Naomi Idris Wimborne.
Hi everybody. Hello. People ask us in the Jewish bloc, why are you marching? Those people in Gaza, in the West Bank, those Palestinians, they're not your people. Well, I say, my Jewish grandparents were refugees, right? They came from Russia, Germany, Poland and Ukraine more than 100 years ago, escaping racist persecution. They did not flee in the 19th century for Israel to oppress Palestinians in the 21st century and claim they are doing it for us. We say, not in our name. My Jewish parents raised me to care about injustice in our streets, in our town, in our country, all over the world. We remember millions slaughtered in the Nazi Holocaust. We mourn that genocide. We mourn in history, and we swear never again, anywhere, for anyone. The Republic of South Africa proved to the International Court of Justice that Israel was plausibly guilty of genocide in Gaza. On January 26th, the ICJ said Israel must prevent the killing of Palestinians and the destruction of the means of life. Israel must provide humanitarian aid. It must prevent incitement to genocide. Yesterday, the ICJ reiterated its ruling. It said the perilous situation in Rafah demands immediate and effective, I'm quoting here, implementation of the provisional measures which are applicable throughout the Gaza Strip. Now we know Israel continues to do the opposite of all those things in front of the eyes of the world, and our leaders continue to arm and finance them. Shame! In mobilizing for today's demonstration, the Black Jewish Alliance, which is part of the Jewish bloc, said, if we didn't march, if we didn't boycott, if we didn't disrupt, if we didn't shout for Palestine, the world would continue as normal. The world can never rest while Palestinians face genocide. Without Palestinian liberation, none of us can be free. Stop arming Israel! Stop funding Israeli apartheid! Stop the ethnic cleansing! Stop the genocide. Thank you.
Stop the genocide! Free Palestine! Stop the genocide! Free Palestine! Stop the genocide! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Our next speaker is a councillor from Haringey and one of an ever-growing number of councillors who have left the Labour Party over Labour's support for the genocide in Gaza. Please make some noise for Councillor Lottie Collett.
Free, free! Free, free! I resigned as a Labour councillor 10 days into the war on Gaza. I could not stomach Starmer's stance. He wasn't calling for a ceasefire. He wasn't even calling for respect of international law. I was joined by my comrades, Mary Mason and Mark Blake. Together we have formed a new group of independent socialist councillors on Haringey Council. We were gagged by the Labour Party. There was no debate. We were not to appear at pro-Palestine demonstrations. Not the three of us. To be silent is to be complicit. The people of Haringey have a proud tradition of confronting injustice, both here and internationally. In April 1977, we stood against the National Front and would not let them pass down our high street. Jeremy Corbyn was one of those councillors from Haringey who stopped the fascists. The people of Haringey stood against the cruelty and injustice of South African apartheid. Our borough welcomed our adoptive son, ANC leader Oliver Tambo. We used our right to boycott then, as we fight now for the right to divest Haringey Council's pension fund away from the heinous crimes of the Israeli government. We stand against genocide and we will fight anti-Semitism, Islamophobia and all forms of racism and discrimination. In Palestine, men, women and children who fled to Rafah seeking refuge are now under attack. Gaza has lost 29,000 human lives in 4 months. 1/3 of those are children. The basic necessities of life have been removed. Aid and water have been cut off. Power gone. Communication with the outside world is limited. But the International Court of Justice has been clear that aid must be extended to those suffering in Gaza. Yet 16 donor countries have withdrawn funding to UNRWA, which will run out of money by the end of this month. Rishi Sunak, shame on you! You must check ceasefire-no-vote.org. The independent socialist councillors are listening to you. We hear your pain and we are organising. We have built networks across the country. Parliamentary candidates such as Andrew Feinstein and Liane Mohammed are being put forward. Check the voting record of your MP. We should only campaign for those who are calling for a ceasefire. Your voices here in the streets of London need to be spread across the country, through every council ward, through every constituency. The No Ceasefire, No Vote conferences are in London on the 2nd of March and in Blackburn on the 13th of April. We are bringing together independent councillors, independent parliamentary candidates and solidarity campaigners to create a mass pressure for every candidate to call for ceasefire and to end the occupation. We must be ready to support parliamentary and council candidates who call for ceasefire and deselect those who refuse. Your energy is needed at the general election campaign for the most important international issue of our time. This is the first step on the road to challenge of Starmer's Labour Party and ultimately to a truly green socialist alternative. Thank you. No ceasefire, no vote. No ceasefire, no vote.
No ceasefire! No ceasefire! No ceasefire! As loud as possible so we can send a message to every single one of the war criminals in Westminster. No ceasefire! No ceasefire! No ceasefire! Our final speaker is the director of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Please make some noise for Ben Jamal!
Thank you. Friends, I want to thank you once again for coming out to march, all 250,000 of you. Now, friends, for the last 4 months, our leaders have tried to normalise mass slaughter, tried to convince us that what we are witnessing is not a genocide, despite what the ICJ says and despite what we can see with our own eyes. They have tried to convince us that Israel has a right to kill more than 28,000 Palestinians, including more than 12,000 children. That Israel has a right to turn off water, food, fuel and essential medical supplies. That it has a right to bomb hospitals, schools, mosques and universities, and that it has a right to force 1.7 million people to flee again and again, leaving them to shelter wherever they can. Mud-filled tents in the cold and in the rain. Shame upon them. Now this week, we have all seen and heard images and stories that we will never forget. This week, we all saw the image of 7-year-old Sidra blown out of a home by a missile that left her mutilated body hanging from a wall in Rafah. We will not forget it, nor the image of the last photograph taken of her running in play with her sister. This week, we all saw members of the Palestinian Red Crescent walking through the rubble of destroyed homes with a small sack they used to gather the body parts of children so that there might be something to identify them, something for their families to bury. And this week, we learned that 300,000 people in the north of Gaza, who the World Programme says are facing famine, are subsiding on handfuls of animal feed. We will not forget any of this, nor will we forgive the complicity of our leaders. as Israel openly discusses its plans for a mass ethnic cleansing of all of the Palestinians of Gaza into Egypt, our government sells its weapons, cuts funding to UNRWA, demonises all of you, those of us protesting, tries to introduce new laws to intimidate us, and proceeds with legislation to prevent support for the Palestinian movement for boycott, divestment and sanctions. Shame upon them. Friends, we will not be intimidated, nor will we stop, because our Palestinian brothers and sisters will never stop. Through 75 years of colonisation, ethnic cleansing, occupation and apartheid, they have refused to succumb, refused to yield, refused to give up their struggle for justice and for liberation. And so we stand with them, because we know until they are free, none of us can be free. So we do not stop. On Wednesday, our MPs will be debating a motion for a ceasefire. I need all of you to go onto the Palestine Solidarity Campaign social media. Email your MP. Tell them no ceasefire, no vote. But those of you who can, we need you to come to Parliament. We need you to lobby your MP, to stand in front of them, face to face, to say to them, if you do not vote for a ceasefire, I will not vote for you. We are planning the biggest lobby in parliamentary history. We want to see a queue. We want to see a queue stretching all the way through Whitehall. We want so many of you to come that they will have to lock the doors of Parliament itself. On March the 2nd, we want you taking action in your towns and cities against Barclays Bank in our latest day of action, calling for a boycott until it disinvests from companies supplying weapons used by Israel to unleash mass slaughter. On March the 8th, we want you taking action, staging walkouts in your workplace. And then, friends, on March the 9th, we want you back here again, where once more, in our hundreds of thousands, we will march through the streets of London. So, friends, we do not stop. We cannot stop. We will not stop. We will never stop marching. We will never stop protesting. We will never stop boycotting until a ceasefire is called, until the genocide is ended, until the occupation is ended, until apartheid is dismantled, until the day when all of the Palestinian people from the river to the sea are finally free. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Thank you.
From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Thank you so much for coming down here today. In a moment, I'm going to pass you on to Alex, who's going to give you some instructions for dispersal. But please make sure that you are dispersing safely, that you're taking all of your belongings with you. And for one last time, before we finally let you go, raise your flags, raise your placards. Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands! In our thousands, in our millions! Thank you very much! Free, free Palestine!
Can we thank Neha and Grace for their brilliant chairing of the rally today? And also our signers, who I think are fantastic. Please give them a big round of applause.
Well done, thank you. Okay, so my job now, the rally is over, and my job is to ask you to start dispersing quickly and safely. There is no way out past us, so we're going to have to ask you to disperse back the way you came. So there are entrances into the park, and if you walk through the park, you can reach tube stations on the Central Line, Lancaster Gate and Queensway. So if you can start making your way towards the park entrances and work your way up there. If you go into the park, you can walk back all the way we came and reach Knightsbridge Tube and Hyde Park Corner on the Piccadilly line. Or if you want to, go past Albert Hall down this way to your right, you can reach South Kensington and Gloucester Road. So there's a lot of tube stations to reach, but we do want to clear the road as quickly and as safely as we can, because they want to open up the roads again and dismantle the stage doing that. So if you could, our stewards will come through, start coming through now and helping you disperse and direct you. But please go home quickly and safely, and we'll see you again in a few weeks' time. So into the park, work your way through the park, or back towards Knightsbridge and Hyde Park Corner. Thank you all so much. Thank you.